Well, g'day. We're here with Ian Counsel on the Safety Leaders podcast. And I'll put a bit of a link in, to your LinkedIn in the show notes, Ian. But thank you very much for coming on.
G'day, John, and g'day, Amy. It's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
And before we, go into a ton of detail, give us the cliff notes, the short story on the career, and to get to where you are in your career now.
Okay, thanks, John. You might be surprised to learn I started working quality. Spent 8 years on the shop floor in the UK, working for companies involved in oil and gas, a nuclear industry, manufacture of pressure vessels. Completed qualifications in quality management, welding and engineering, migrated to Australia in 1995, diversified into environmental management, then into health and safety. And since about 2004, worked for public and private companies involved in construction, mining and robotics in FIFO, HSE roles, at regional, group and general manager level.
Man, that's done everything. But and what about outside of work, Ian? Tell us who Ian Counsel is outside of work.
Okay, married to a lovely wife, Jane, father to two, children, now adults, 21 and 23, both born here in Perth, WA. I love volunteering, enjoy cycling, and I'm a really strong advocate for mental health in our community, working with not-for-profit organisations. I'm also completing for my sins postgrad studies in mental health and neuroscience. So continuing to learn. Well,
I think we'll come back because I know how important it is to you, the mental health piece. And it's good. Like, I really want to cover it, but I guess first, before we get to that, I know you said you came from a quality background, but how did you find yourself, for better or for worse, in safety?
Okay, I mentioned I migrated to Perth in '95. I started work with consultancy group called Worley. One of the divisions had a specialist environment and health and safety consultancy arm. I took a really keen interest in health and safety. I joined the Safety Institute of Australia as it was back in '95. The really next few years seized the opportunity in 2004 to take on full-time a group health and safety role for a commercial construction company in Perth. Having done that, I went back to uni in 2005 whilst working full-time to complete a master's in health and safety. I thought it was really important to not only take on a new role, but to have some qualifications and credibility in terms of applying that in practice.
Yeah. Ian, what would you give your younger self in terms of your... Oh, stop that up.
That's all right. That's all right.
I'll try it again.
We'll move it around.
Sorry. What's the biggest learning you would give your younger self?
Learning to my younger self, I think for me, it would be a little bit more patience. Continue to invest in yourself and seize new opportunities to learn and develop. I think also do not be put off by negative people, and that can be in a functional health and safety role or as a business leader, who may hold you back from realising your dreams.
And just going a bit maybe off script there, but it struck me there when you're saying you went and got a postgrad and you're still continuing studying. How important do you think it is for safety professionals, I guess, to A, tertiary education and then B, continued development?
I think for any person in a health and safety role, whether it be a practitioner or professional, is to continue on your self-development and learning. And also help develop others, and that can be in the organisation because giving back is really rewarding, but also it's fun. Never lose sight of the health and safety, whether it's focusing deeper on hazardous chemicals of work or mental health and well-being. I think safety professionals need to equip themselves and learn more about mental health, focus on prevention and intervention than investigating maybe harmful behaviours that have already occurred, or tragically, which we hear about often, is suicide, at the workplace. So I think, yeah, it's really important that health and safety practitioners and professionals continue to learn as much as they can, and help develop others as well.
Yeah, I know we've talked about this both online and offline, Ian, but I know it's something that's important to you. But talk to me about the health and safety. And I've always enjoyed how you've split that and made it a priority. The health and safety, because you're right, it does often get overshadowed. But talk me around what that means for you, mate.
I think both personally, professionally. So personally. I've got 2 adult children. In terms of some of the, as was challenges in terms of they had with mental health. So I think for anybody watching, whether you're, a parent, a sister, a brother, an uncle, is that you may know somebody who's had some challenges with mental health. And I think certainly when you go through that makes it even more important. Professionally, if I think going back to some of the oil and gas days in 2004 and beyond, a lot of our people may have struggled at site. We've helped them in terms of whether that's time off to get back home and to be mentally well. So I've seen it probably in the last 10 years, and probably been practicing it a lot in terms of having that caring culture. We acknowledge you cannot, fix people, but I think if we can care enough to have the conversations, to support where we can, and certainly make sure that we provide a mentally healthy workplace, as practically as we can.
I mean, you must have seen the changes, employees assistance programs. That's relatively new, but where do you see it? I might be getting ahead of myself, mate, but where do you see it going? Where do you see, in your eyes, when we talk about the mental health side? I mean, a lot of people say it's the new frontier, or the new focus of health and safety. But where do you see that support going as for businesses and organisations, for employees, in terms of that support? Where do you see that?
I think, look, firstly, to acknowledge it is very complex. And mental health is a positive thing. On that compendium of scale, in terms of people have good days and they have good days. It's when you have, I guess, more, days that are bad, and where you can, sink deeper into depression, becomes a mental. But where do I see it going? I think, well, firstly, start with health and safety professionals. It's firmly under the health safety work laws. I think it's really important that practitioners, professionals learn more to help them, develop and appreciate, I guess, a mental health literacy. The employee assistance program, if used well, not be seen as last resort, or when people are broken. I think of it like a psychologist as a coach, where you can turn to them for advice, you can turn to them for maybe tools and techniques, and it may be not about you. It may be you're a parent with teenage children, that you don't have all the answers. And what you're looking for is some, professional advice in terms of how you can help people that you love or care about. So I think health and safety people, it's certainly deepen your appreciation in terms of psychosocial hazards, risk factors at work, and start the conversations in terms of helping leaders understand that as well, to influence.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's just, we talk about EAP and stuff, but even we talk about psychologists, counselling, like, I look back to when I was at uni and it was like either something you'd see on movies or it had the stigma to it. Now it's definitely more acceptable. I mean, talking to mates about like, they're seeing someone, seeing a mental health practitioner, there's no stigma attached to it, and whereas 15, 20 years ago, it definitely was. You were seeing a psychologist because there's something wrong with him,
Yeah. And a good example, a lot of people may associate with sport and something that they enjoy outside of work. I enjoyed road cycling. In terms of an event that was coming up, I wanted to win. So I turned to a psychologist to help me keep focused in terms of, okay, well, how can I shut out any negative thoughts? How can I perform at my best? Look, and it really worked for me. So I think if you use work activities in similar to sport, and you play to win, and we set people up to be in the right mindset, a lot of people at work will say, well, we want you to remain focused. And you've got to ask, how have we helped people to do that? What tools or techniques have we given to remain focused? Some of our people are working 8, 10, 12 hours a day. In sport, you might have to be match fit and perform at your best for 90 minutes. So I think, while there's some analogies with sport, also at work, the job demands placed on people can be high and stressful too.
Yeah, that probably segues nicely as well, because I think, too often as well, it's different work styles, right? People have complete, and I know we've talked about this, right? And I know this is probably, it is something that you're passionate about, but different work styles within a workplace. I mean, even the team of Sundstrom, we're a team of 5, and I bounce off the walls and people don't, and we all have different styles and ways of working and working at that capacity. I mean, I don't know it's important to you, so I'll probably turn the leaf to you, Ian, and I think, how do you see that integrating into workplaces?
I think in terms of a leadership, maybe how I lead is to be an influential leader.
Yep.
Emotional intelligence is important. As a leader, I think we have to take calculated risk, but challenge the status quo. So, moving out of my comfort zone a few years ago from construction, going back into robotics. An example it was refreshing to learn about agile scrums, how young engineers, pretty much having just graduated, were empowered to, lead engineering teams and help solve problems.
Yeah.
So I suppose, leadership is to lead by developing, motivating others to achieve a safe and healthier workplace.
Who's, we all have people that have been an influence. Who's been an influence on you, would you say?
I think in terms of influence and support, my wife. I think all of us, if you have a
that's the first brownie point. That's the first right answer that anyone's said, by the way, Ian, right? We've done a couple of these now, and that's the first right answer. So ding, ding, ding. Ian's got it.
I think, look, health and safety and other disciplines, it can be a thankless task, but there's somebody you can talk to, that you can bounce off, that support you, that's got you back. That makes a hell of a difference. So I think, I don't think I'd be where I am in terms of without my wife's support. Professionally, look, in my early career, Martin Smith, who was then group manager of Leighton Contractors, I worked with 8 years, was very supportive, a great source of inspiration. More recently at Langor Rourke, and this would be 2014 to 17, John Green, who was a director of health, safety, environment in Australia. Working with John, he really challenged me in thinking about traditional safety and what safety differently could be. I worked with Signe Decker and with other regional leads at the time during my time with Langor Rourke. I think we were able to get some really good traction with the safety differently tools and techniques that we were experimenting back in 2015. An example of that would be positive investigations. I remember the first time working at Wheatstone, where we gave Chevron, who was a client there, an ICAM investigation for a high risk activity that had gone really well, and they didn't know what to do with it. But once we explained why we'd done it, and we wanted to learn about what gaps there were in terms of doing high risk work, opportunities to learn, and what we were doing well, so we could sustain that great performance. Soon after, they were expecting that from all other contractors too, to share, the learnings of what was going well and why.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of leaders that I've worked with in industry that have certainly inspired me.
We've talked about this before, mate. That someone that is a hiring manager, and also someone that develops his team, develops people. What do you look for when you hire members of your team and maybe younger safety professionals?
Okay, the 3 C's for me would stand out as first, which is competency. So if they're qualified in the role, capability, So if they're working, say, an advertised 5-4 role, have they done 5-4 before? Because if you've not, it certainly can be challenging. And credibility. So I think those are important as a start. Having a really positive attitude and a willingness to learn. So if there's somebody that I interview as a candidate and they're not only well prepared, they know about the company, they know about maybe some of our vision and values, and they can confidently share based on their own experiences how they've solved problems in health and safety. I think that's important because, we do problem solve every day. But somebody who's got a willingness to learn and develop and a great attitude, to me, are some standouts that I've been looking for.
There you go. That's the secret tips to getting a job from here, clearly. But no, I think the preparation is the biggest thing. I always say to people, it's amazing, the feedback that we get from clients as well that say, candidates come haven't even known the job they're applying for. If they're going through a SEEK advert sometimes, which is just insane to me. But then the other thing is linking something to give it that demonstrable experience. You link something to a time that you've actually done it, or at least comparatively done something similar. And I think that gives you that credibility. 10 out of 10 times, right?
It does.
No, mate. Look, I know you're a busy man, but I guess we talked about mental health developing and the health and safety. But where's an area if you could click your fingers to make a change to the industry, what do you think it would be? Not to catch you off guard as the last question.
Maybe something you implement or something along those lines.
I think there's a few things in terms of the profession that I'd love to see evolve. One, health and safety be recognised, more as a profession in Australia.
Yep.
In the last 20 years, that the role of health and safety has morphed, with quality and environment and vice versa. I think in terms of looking ahead, certainly the environmental, social governance. So people who've got the ESG, proven skills and record will be sought after. I don't think you can ignore the role of digital technology and how that's going to influence the profession of health and safety and may even replace it. John, I look at this chat.
GPT
the other day, and I thought I'd put in there an example of and some detail of mental health strategy for a workplace, and I know it's the return within a couple of minutes, but some people would spend hours or maybe a day looking for different evidence-based information, and look, it wasn't far off the mark for a page. So I think as a health and safety practitioner, you've got to fully embrace, I guess, the technology, and really that will help to transform, I suppose, a worker's experience at work. So that's what I think we will see as a change, is the more role of digital technology. I think health and safety professionals may become more freelance in time, not working for only one company, as they, I guess, seek more flexibility. And fun in terms of what they do.
It's one of those. There's a few things there. I mean, I think that consulting route, definitely, especially with millennials, people sort of 20 to 30, very big on even though the salaries, in terms of joining a consultancy business might not be as high as being, internal. It's the flexibility that's attractive to them and diversity. And also what you were saying with ESG, we're recruiting a senior ESG role at the moment, and it's still in its infancy, right? I think that as a profession, probably, you said it earlier in the PC, and when you said about the Safety Institute of Australia, it was SIA then, right? Before it became AIHS. I mean, 95, 96, it would have You're probably on double digits of membership numbers there, Ian. Yeah, no, must have been one of the inaugurals, mate.
Oh, it's strange when you look at applications coming through and you look at the date of birth. It certainly makes me feel old. That's for sure, John.
But like, you use the example from what safety was in the 90s to what it is today. I imagine ESG being very similar. Like it's an area where it's still very much its infancy. It's still a lot of people that are taking it are coming from an environmental background. I think it'll open up more from that risk and governance, sustainability, rather than the big E, environmental, because it is really risk and sustainability. And I can see a lot more senior professionals matriculate into that area for sure.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. Definitely, certainly for public limited companies, and obviously investors, demanding, I guess, more in terms of the ESG and then reporting, and asking companies, how are they managing that?
Well, what's interesting for us and what we're seeing is that it's not. 5 years ago, it was only the domain of principal miners or large ASXs, right? You're now seeing contractors, that probably wouldn't have thought about that, realizing that no, their shareholders are just as interested in that, and actually making changes in that direction, or at least being conscious of it, which I think a few years ago, there wasn't a consciousness of it. It was just some sort of corporate function that not many people understood,
Correct. And I think certainly if people haven't in the health and safety profession, have a look at the United Nations sustainability goals, have a look at the information in there, and that'll help to position you, maybe not in your current job, but maybe for future roles. If you can really understand in terms of what, the vision is, and in terms of those sustainability goals, and look at other maybe companies' annual reports in terms of how they're achieving that'll give you some insight in terms of where we're going in the ESG space.
Awesome. Well, Ian, thank you very much for coming on, mate. I'll put a link in the show notes as well. But thank you very much, mate. We've been chatting for a long time as well, and you're always someone that brightens my day whenever I jump on a phone call to you. And so, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Ian.
Thanks for the opportunity, John. See you, Amy.
Bye.